German Shepherd was crying from a hollow. Tree trunk wispy up. What baby did, next left. Everyone in tears. What happened that morning would change everything. A 5-year-old boy heard something that made grown men cry. If you're watching this incredible story, hit like and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're from. The whimpering started just after sunrise. Ethan Parker pressed his small face against the kitchen window, watching fog roll across their backyard in Willowbrook. His breath fogged the glass as he listened. There it was again. Not quite a cry, not quite a howl. Something else. Something that made his chest feel tight. "Mommy, do you hear that?" His voice barely rose above a whisper. Grace Parker didn't look up from packing lunches. "Hear what, sweetie?" Her hands moved automatically. Sandwich, apple, juice box. Same routine every morning since David died, since everything changed. That sound, like someone's really sad. Probably just the wind through the trees. She finally glanced at him, noticed his worried expression. "Don't go past the fence, okay?" "I mean it, Ethan, but 5-year-olds don't understand that some sounds pull at your soul. They don't know that certain cries reach past logic and grab hold of something deeper." Ethan's small fingers worked the back door handle while his mother answered a work call in the other room. The morning air bit at his cheeks. October in Willowbrook meant frost on grass and leaves crunching underfoot. The sound came again, clearer now, more desperate. Not the wind. Definitely not the wind. His Superman sneakers left tiny prints in the dew as he crossed the yard. The fence his mother mentioned stood like a promise he was about to break. Beyond it, the forest edge waited, dark even in morning light. The crying got louder with each step. "Hello?" His voice sounded too small against the trees. "Are you hurt?" The response made him freeze, a long, mournful sound that seemed to say, "Yes, yes, please help me." Ethan looked back at the house. Mom was still on the phone, pacing by the window. Grandpa Thomas wouldn't wake for another hour. His medicine made him sleep late. The fence had a loose board. Ethan knew because he'd watched squirrels squeeze through. If squirrels could do it, so could he. The wood scraped his jacket as he wiggled through. On the other side, the forest felt different, bigger, older. 20 steps in, maybe 30, stood the oldest oak tree in Willowbrook. Everyone knew about it. The hollow oak where teenagers carved initials and older kids told ghost stories. But Ethan had never seen it like this, had never heard it cry. The sound came from inside the massive trunk. Through a gap in the bark, barely wide enough for Ethan to fit his arm through, he saw eyes. Brown eyes filled with more pain than any 5-year-old should recognize. But Ethan did recognize it. He'd seen it in his mother's eyes every day since the funeral. "Oh no." He dropped to his knees in the ball of damp leaves. "You're stuck." The German Shepherd's whimper confirmed what his eyes already knew. The dog was wedged deep inside the hollow trunk, fur matted with dirt, and was that blood on its paws? The animal had been trying to claw its way out. For how long? "It's okay. I'm here now." Ethan used the same voice his dad used to use when he had nightmares. Soft, steady, sure. "I'm gonna help you." The dog's tail attempted a weak wag, thumping against the inner walls of its wooden prison. That's when Ethan noticed the collar, not just any collar, but thick leather with metal tags that caught the morning light. This wasn't some stray. This dog belonged to someone who was probably looking for it, someone who was probably as scared as the dog looked. Ethan tried pulling at the opening, but the old wood didn't budge. He tried calling to the dog, coaxing it forward, but the animal seemed unable or unwilling to move. Its breathing came in short, panicked bursts that made Ethan's own chest feel tight. "Don't be scared." He sat back on his heels, thinking the way 5-year-olds think, with their hearts more than their heads. Then he remembered something. The song. The one Dad used to hum when storms made the windows rattle. The one that meant everything would be okay, even when it felt like the world was ending. The melody came out shaky at first. Ethan couldn't remember all the words, so he just hummed. The effect was immediate. The dog's breathing slowed. Its eyes, visible through the gap, focused on him with an intensity that felt almost human. "You like that?" Ethan scooted closer, continuing to hum. "My daddy taught me that song. He's in heaven now, but I think he'd want me to help you." The German Shepherd made a different sound then. Not quite a whine, more like acknowledgement, like it understood more than it should. Ethan reached his small hand through the gap, expecting the dog to pull away, or maybe even snap at him. Instead, a warm tongue licked his fingers. Gentle. Grateful. That's when he saw them clearly, the tags on the collar. One was normal, the kind every dog had with a name and phone number, but the other was different, military different. Even at 5, Ethan knew what those special tags meant. His dad had shown him similar ones at the memorial wall in town. Sergeant Rex K9 Unit was etched into the metal along with numbers that meant nothing to Ethan, but everything to someone, somewhere. "You're a soldier dog?" His eyes widened. "Like the ones Daddy told me about? The brave ones?" The dog, Rex apparently, whimpered again. And this time, Ethan heard what he'd missed before. Not just pain, not just fear, exhaustion. This animal had been trapped for a while. Maybe all night. Maybe longer. Ethan pulled his hand back and dug in his jacket pocket. Half a peanut butter sandwich from yesterday, wrapped in a napkin. Mom would be mad if she knew he'd kept it, but sometimes a boy needed snacks for emergencies. This felt like an emergency. He tore off a small piece and pushed it through the gap. Rex took it so gently, so carefully, like he was afraid of scaring Ethan away. The simple act of eating seemed to tire him out. His head drooped, resting against the inner wall of the trunk. "No, no, stay awake." Panic crept into Ethan's voice. He'd seen enough movies to know that sleeping when you're hurt was bad. "Please, Rex, I'm gonna get help, I promise." But who? Mom would be angry he'd left the yard. Grandpa couldn't walk this far, not with his hip. The neighbors were mostly at work by now, except Mr. Chen, the old man who lived 2 houses down and spent his mornings on his porch, drinking coffee and reading newspapers. Mom said he used to be a firefighter. Firefighters saved people. Maybe they saved dogs, too. Ethan stood, brushing leaves from his knees. "I'll be right back, Rex." "Don't go anywhere." He winced at his own words. "I mean, just hold on, okay?" The run back through the forest felt longer. The loose fence board seemed harder to squeeze through. His feet felt heavier as he ran across 2 backyards to Mr. Chen's house. The old man was exactly where Ethan expected. Porch swing, coffee mug, newspaper. "Mr. Chen!" Ethan's voice came out too loud, too desperate. "I need help!" "Please!" The newspaper lowered slowly. Mr. Chen's weathered face appeared, eyebrows raised. "Ethan? What are you doing out here alone? Where's your mother?" "There's a dog. A soldier dog. He's stuck in the old tree and he's hurt, and he might die, and I promised I'd help him." The words tumbled out in a rush, tears starting to blur his vision. "Please, Mr. Chen. Nobody else can help." Something in Ethan's voice must have reached past the old man's skepticism. Mr. Chen set down his newspaper, studying the boy's face. "A soldier dog, you said?" His tag says, Sergeant Rex K9 Unit. Ethan grabbed Mr. Chen's hand, tugging. "Please." He's really scared. Mr. Chen's expression changed then. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, maybe, or memory. "Rex? Did you say Rex? You know him?" "I knew a K9 named Rex once, long time ago, during my service." Mr. Chen stood, his movements suddenly purposeful. "Show me. Now." They moved through the forest faster than Ethan expected. Mr. Chen might have been old, but he walked like someone who remembered being young, like someone who remembered what it meant to answer a call for help. The hollow oak looked different with an adult there, smaller somehow, less magical. But the crying from inside sounded exactly the same, desperate, fading. Mr. Chen dropped to his knees beside the opening, pulling a small flashlight from his pocket. The beam cut through the shadows inside the trunk, illuminating what Ethan had only glimpsed. Rex was wedged deep inside, his body twisted at an uncomfortable angle. His fur was matted with dirt and blood. His breathing was shallow, labored. "Jesus!" Mr. Chen breathed. "How long have you been in there, boy?" Rex's tail moved, slightly at the sound of a new voice, but his eyes stayed fixed on Ethan. "Trust," that look said. "I trust the small one." "We need help," Mr. Chen said, already pulling out his phone. "Tools, medical supplies, This is going to be complicated." He dialed quickly, spoke in short, efficient sentences to someone on the other end. Then another call. "Maria, it's Chen. I need you at the Hollow Oak off Maple Street. Bring your emergency kit." "Yes, the veterinary one." While Mr. Chen made calls, Ethan sat by the opening, humming his father's song again. Rex's breathing seemed to sync with the melody, growing steadier, if not stronger. The boy's small hand reached through the gap again, fingers barely brushing the dog's muzzle. "Mr. Chen knows what to do," he whispered to Rex. "He's a hero, like you. Like my daddy was." Mr. Chen finished his calls and crouched beside Ethan. "That song, where did you learn it?" "My daddy. He said it was from when he was a soldier." The old man's eyes grew distant. "I know that song. We used to hum it on long nights, when things got bad." He looked at Rex through the opening. "I bet this fellow knows it too." Together, the old firefighter and the young boy hummed the melody. And deep inside the Hollow Oak, a German shepherd who'd seen too much and traveled too far finally allowed his eyes to close. Not in surrender, but in relief. Help had come. The small human with the familiar song had kept his promise. "Maria will be here in 10 minutes, Mr. Chen said. "But Ethan, I need you to tell me everything. When did you find him? Has he responded to anything besides the song?" Ethan told him about the whimpering, the failed attempts to coax Rex out, the military tags. Mr. Chen listened with growing concern, occasionally shining his flashlight into the trunk to check on Rex. "This isn't just any military dog," Mr. Chen said quietly. "K9 units are special. They're partners, not just animals. Someone out there is missing more than a pet. They're missing family. Then we have to save him." Ethan's voice carried a determination that seemed too big for his small body. "We have to get him back to his person." "We will." Mr. Chen's hand rested on Ethan's shoulder. "You did good, son. Real good. Not many people would have heard that crying. Even fewer would have cared enough to help." The sound of tires on gravel announced Maria Santos's arrival. She came through the trees carrying 2 large bags, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her eyes took in the scene quickly. The trapped dog, the old tree, the boy who wouldn't leave the opening. How long has he been in there? She was already pulling on latex gloves, her movements efficient. Unknown, at least overnight, possibly longer. Mr. Chen moved aside to give her room. "The boy found him this morning." Maria knelt beside the opening, her flashlight revealing more details. Dehydrated, exhausted. "Those paws are torn up pretty bad." She looked at Ethan. "You're the one who found him?" Ethan nodded, suddenly shy. "You might have saved his life." She pulled a syringe from her bag. "I need to give him something for the pain before we try to move him." "Can you keep him calm?" "I can hum the song." "Perfect, do that." As Ethan hummed, Maria worked. The needle went in smooth, Rex barely flinching. Within minutes, his breathing deepened, muscles relaxing slightly. "Now comes the hard part," Maria said. "This opening is too small. We need to widen it without hurting him, or damaging the tree too much. This oak is protected. It's a historical landmark." "I've got tools in my truck," Mr. Chen said. "But it'll take time." "Time we might not have." Maria checked Rex's pulse. "He's stable for now, but barely. And there's something else." She held up a piece of paper she'd found tucked into Rex's collar. "This is a military document. Recent, very recent." Mr. Chen took the paper, his face growing grave as he read. "This is a search grid. Someone was conducting a training exercise." He looked up sharply. "This dog's handler might be out there, might be in trouble. The weight of that possibility settled over them like the morning fog. Somewhere in these woods, a soldier might be hurt, might be waiting for his dog to bring help. And his dog was trapped, had been crying for help that almost didn't come. "We need to call this in," Maria said. "Search and rescue?" "No." Ethan's voice surprised them all. "Rex came here. He got stuck trying to get somewhere, maybe trying to get help." The 5-year-old logic was simple but compelling. What if his person is close? What if that's why Rex is here? Mr. Chen and Maria exchanged glances. It wasn't protocol. It wasn't sensible. But something about the boy's certainty, about the way Rex's eyes tracked to Ethan every time he spoke, made them pause. "Storm's coming," Mr. Chen observed, looking at the darkening sky. "If that trunk floods, he'll drown." Maria's voice was flat, clinical, but her eyes showed the horror of that possibility. "We need to move now." Thunder rumbled in the distance, still far off, but approaching. The morning that had started clear was turning dark, clouds rolling in from the west like an advancing army. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting. "I'll get the tools," Mr. Chen said, already moving. "Maria, keep him stable. Ethan, I'm staying with Rex." The boy's chin jutted out, stubborn. "I promised." Mr. Chen nodded, understanding promises in a way only old soldiers could. "Then you stay. But if I tell you to move, you move. No questions. Deal? Deal." As Mr. Chen disappeared through the trees, Maria continued her examination of Rex. "There's something else?" she said quietly to Ethan. "Look at his collar. See those marks?" Ethan leaned closer. Scratches in the leather formed a rough pattern, almost like arrows. "He was marking something," Maria breathed. "Even trapped, he was trying to leave a message." The first drops of rain began to fall, heavy and cold. Time was running out. In the hollow oak, Rex's breathing grew more labored, his body shivering despite the pain medication. Whatever message he'd been trying to leave, whatever mission had brought him to this tree, the window for completing it was closing. Ethan's small hand found Rex's muzzle again. "Hold on," he whispered. "Just hold on a little longer." But even as he said it, even as Mr. Chen returned with tools and they began the delicate work of widening the opening, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something, that Rex hadn't just gotten stuck. He'd come here for a reason, and somewhere out in those darkening woods, someone was counting on a dog who couldn't come. The rain grew heavier, thunder rolled closer, and in the hollow oak, 3 humans and 1 very special dog began a race against time that would reveal just how deep loyalty could run and how far love could reach. The chainsaw wouldn't work. Too risky, Mr. Chen explained. One wrong move and they could injure Rex further. Instead, he produced hand tools, working methodically to chip away at the opening while Maria monitored Rex's vital signs, and Ethan never stopped humming that song. "His handler's name," Maria said suddenly, finding another tag hidden beneath the collar. "Sergeant David Mills. Does that name mean anything to anyone?" Mr. Chen paused in his work. "Mills. David Mills." His face paled. "I heard that name on the news. 3 days ago. Training exercise went wrong. Soldier missing in the wilderness area. 3 days?" Maria's voice rose. "This dog's been searching for 3 days? And he ended up here?" Ethan's small voice cut through their shock. "Maybe he was trying to get to town. To get help." The possibility hung in the air like the rain now drumming on the canopy above. Rex hadn't just gotten lost or stuck. He'd been on a mission, a desperate attempt to save his handler. And he'd almost made it. The hollow oak was less than a quarter mile from the town's edge. So close. "We need search teams," Maria said, reaching for her phone. "If Sergeant Mills has been out there for 3 days..." A sharp bark from Rex cut her off. Despite his weakness, despite the pain, the German Shepherd was suddenly alert, his eyes fixed on something beyond the tree. His whole body tensed, straining toward whatever he sensed. "What is it, boy?" Mr. Chen followed Rex's gaze, but saw only forest. "What do you—" Another bark, stronger this time. Rex's tail began moving, not the weak thumps from before, but deliberate wags, recognition, hope. "He hears something," Ethan said with certainty. Or someone. They all fell silent, listening past the rain and thunder. At first, nothing. Then, so faint it might have been imagination, a whistle. 3 short notes, repeated. Rex went wild, struggling against his wooden prison with renewed energy that he shouldn't have had. His barks echoed inside the trunk, desperate and joyful at once. "That's a signal," Mr. Chen said, his firefighter training kicking in. "Someone's out there." "But who?" Maria was already standing, peering into the rain-soaked forest. "If it's Sergeant Mills, how is he mobile after 3 days? Maybe he's not." Ethan's observation was simple, but chilling. Maybe he can only whistle. The whistle came again, slightly closer. Rex's response was immediate. 3 barks, a pause, then 3 more. A conversation in sounds that transcended words. "We need to get him out now," Mr. Chen said, attacking the wood with renewed urgency. "If that's his handler out there, injured, in this weather—" "The opening's almost wide enough," Maria measured quickly. "Maybe another inch." "We don't have time for another inch." Ethan's voice carried surprising authority. "Rex needs to answer. He needs to show his person he's okay." It was 5-year-old logic, but it was also truth. Whatever strength was keeping Sergeant Mills moving, whistling, searching, might not last much longer, and Rex knew it. The dog's eyes met Ethan's, and in them was a plea clearer than words. "Okay." Mr. Chen made a decision that went against every safety protocol he'd learned. "We try now. Maria, can you sedate him more? Make him relaxed enough that we can compress?" "Too risky. More sedation, and he might not wake up." Maria's hands were steady, but her voice shook. "We pull him as is. It'll hurt him. Staying here might kill him. And his handler." They positioned themselves carefully. Mr. Chen at Rex's shoulders, Maria supporting his middle through the widened gap, Ethan at his head, still humming that song. On the count of 3, they pulled. Rex's cry of pain was horrible. It cut through the rain, through the thunder, through everything. But they didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Inch by agonizing inch, they worked him free from his wooden prison. His fur tore, his existing wounds reopened, but he never snapped, never bit. His eyes stayed locked on Ethan's, trusting. With a final pull, Rex came free, collapsing onto the wet leaves. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Rex lifted his head, looked directly at Ethan, and licked his hand once before struggling to his feet. "Rex, no, you need to rest." Maria started, but the German Shepherd was already moving, limping heavily but determined, toward where the whistles had come from. "Follow him," Ethan said, grabbing Mr. Chen's hand. "He knows where to go." They formed a strange procession through the rain-soaked forest, a wounded military dog leading a veterinarian, an old firefighter, and a 5-year-old boy. Rex moved like every step hurt, but he never slowed, never hesitated. His nose worked constantly, reading signs humans couldn't see. The whistle came again, much closer now, but weaker. Rex barked in response and changed direction slightly, leading them down a slope covered in wet leaves. The rain made everything slippery, treacherous. Mr. Chen carried Ethan when the terrain got too rough, while Maria stayed close to Rex, ready to support him if he collapsed. They found Sergeant David Mills at the bottom of a ravine, pressed against a rock outcropping that provided minimal shelter from the rain. His left leg was bent at an unnatural angle. His uniform was torn, muddy, blood-stained, but his eyes were clear, focused, alive. The reunion between soldier and dog should have been joyful. Instead, it was silent. Rex dragged himself the last few feet and collapsed against David's chest. The sergeant's arms came up, wrapping around his partner, his face buried in Rex's wet fur. His shoulders shook. Crying or just exhaustion, it was impossible to tell. "Sergeant Mills?" Maria was already moving, medical training overriding the emotion of the moment. "I'm a veterinarian, but I have emergency medical training. Where are you hurt?" "Legs broken." David's voice was hoarse, barely there. "Maybe ribs too. But Rex? Is Rex okay?" I heard him crying. For 2 days I heard him crying, but I couldn't. His voice broke. "He's hurt but alive," Maria said, examining David's leg with gentle efficiency. "He got stuck trying to get help. This boy found him." David's eyes found Ethan for the first time. "You saved him? We saved each other," Ethan said simply. "That's what friends do." Something passed across David's face. Surprise, gratitude, something deeper. "What's your name, soldier?" Ethan Parker." "Well, Ethan Parker, you just did what an entire search team couldn't do. You found us." Mr. Chen was already on his phone, calling for rescue services, providing coordinates. The rain was getting worse, the ravine starting to fill with runoff. They needed to move, but David couldn't walk and Rex could barely stand. "How long were you here?" Maria asked, fashioning a makeshift splint from branches. 3 days. Training exercise went bad. Radio broke in the fall. Rex stayed with me the first 2 days, then I told him to go get help. David's hand never left Rex's fur. Stubborn dog tried to drag me out instead. When that didn't work, I finally convinced him to go. That was yesterday morning. "He almost made it to town," Mr. Chen said, Got stuck in a hollow tree just at the edge. David's eyes closed briefly. Of course he did. Never could do things the easy way. He looked at Ethan again. How did you know to look for me? I didn't. I just heard Rex crying and knew he needed help. Then when we got him out, he brought us to you. The song, David said suddenly. I heard someone humming. That's what gave me strength to whistle one more time. My daddy's song, Ethan explained. He was a soldier too. He's in heaven now. David's expression softened. I'm sorry, buddy. I bet he was brave, like you. He was. Mommy says I have his heart. The rescue team arrived with practiced efficiency, paramedics for David, emergency vehicles, a whole production that seemed too big for the quiet forest. They wanted to separate David and Rex, transport them to different facilities. Both refused. We go together or not at all, David said firmly. And something in his tone made them listen. They ended up in the same ambulance, Rex on a stretcher beside David's, Ethan somehow managing to squeeze between them because neither patient would calm down without him there. Mr. Chen and Maria followed in her car, the old firefighter quiet, thoughtful. That boy, he finally said, there's something special about him. He heard what others missed, Maria agreed. Most people would have ignored that crying. No, it's more than that. The way Rex trusted him immediately, the way David looked at him. It's like... Mr. Chen paused, searching for words. Like they were meant to find each other. At the hospital, chaos tried to separate them again. David needed surgery. Rex needed veterinary care. Ethan needed to find his mother, who had discovered his absence and was, according to the nurses, frantic. But life has a way of keeping important things together. The hospital administration, faced with a decorated veteran refusing treatment unless his K-9 partner stayed close, made unprecedented arrangements. Rex was treated by Maria in an unused emergency room, close enough that David could hear his barks. Ethan, after a tearful reunion with his mother and a lecture about leaving the yard, was allowed to stay because Rex wouldn't settle without him. I don't understand, Grace said, watching her son sit beside the German shepherd, small hand resting on the dog's bandaged paw. He's never done anything like this before. Sometimes, Mr. Chen said gently, children see what needs to be done more clearly than adults. Your son saved 2 lives today. Grace's eyes filled with tears. His father would have done the same thing, always helping, always running toward trouble instead of away. Then Ethan has good genes, Mr. Chen said, and good training, even if he doesn't know it. As the day wore on, the story began to spread. Local news picked it up. Boy saves military dog and handler. But in the hospital room, where David recovered from surgery and Rex lay on a special bed the staff had brought in, the story was simpler. It was about connection, about loyalty that transcended species, about a 5-year-old boy who heard crying and couldn't walk away. Hey, Ethan, David called softly from his bed. The boy looked up from where he was reading a picture book to Rex, something about a brave knight that the dog seemed to be listening to with unusual attention. Yes, mister. David. Just David is fine. I wanted to say thank you, not just for saving us, but for caring. Not everyone would have. Rex was scared, Ethan said simply. When you're scared, you need someone to be not scared for you. That's what my daddy used to say. David's eyes glistened. Your daddy sounds like he was a smart man. The smartest. He knew all about being brave. He said being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing anyway. That's exactly right. Ethan returned to his book, but David kept watching him, this small boy who'd lost his father, who'd heard a stranger's dog crying and risked everything to help. There was something profound in that simple compassion. Something that reminded David why he joined the service in the first place, to protect innocence like this, to ensure that boys like Ethan could grow up in a world where kindness mattered. Rex made a soft sound, drawing Ethan's attention. The boy leaned closer, and Rex licked his face, tail wagging despite the pain medication. I think he's saying thank you, Ethan giggled. I think you're right, David said. And I think he's saying something else too. What? That he's never going to forget you. Neither of us will. Outside, the storm that had threatened all morning finally broke in full force. Rain lashed the windows, thunder shook the building, But inside that small room, with a soldier, his dog, and a brave little boy, there was warmth. There was hope. There was the beginning of something that would change all their lives. Because sometimes the biggest rescues aren't about the people who are saved. They're about the people who do the saving, and how that act of courage ripples outward, touching lives in ways no one can predict. Ethan Parker, 5 years old, had heard a dog crying and responded with his heart. That simple decision would reshape his family's future in ways they couldn't yet imagine. But that's a story still unfolding, still growing, like the bond between a boy and a German shepherd who found each other when they both needed saving the most. The storm raged through the night, but inside the hospital, a different kind of intensity was building. Rex's condition had taken a sudden turn. His breathing became labored, his body trembling despite the warm blankets. Maria worked frantically, checking vitals, adjusting medications, but her face told the real story. "What's wrong with him?" Ethan asked, his small fingers still intertwined with Rex's fur. The boy hadn't left the dog's side for 6 hours, refusing even to eat until his mother brought food directly to him. "His body's been through too much trauma," Maria explained gently. "Sometimes, even when we fix the visible wounds, there's damage we can't see." David tried to sit up in his bed, wincing at the movement. "Rex, buddy, you gotta fight. You hear me? That's an order." But Rex's eyes were focused entirely on Ethan. The German shepherd's tail gave the weakest thump, as if he was using his last energy to comfort the boy. "No," Ethan's voice was firm, surprising everyone. "You're not giving up. Heroes don't give up." He looked at David. "Tell him about the important stuff. Tell him why he has to stay." "What important stuff?" "The stuff you haven't said yet. The reason you were in the woods. Rex knows something, doesn't he? Something important?" David's face changed, a flicker of something. Fear? Recognition? "How could you know that?" "Because Rex kept trying to show us something on his collar. Scratches like arrows. He was leaving a message." The room fell silent except for the beeping of machines and Rex's labored breathing. David looked at Maria, at Grace, at Mr. Chen, who just returned with coffee. Then he made a decision. "We weren't just training," David said quietly. "We were tracking. There's been suspicious activity in those woods for weeks. People who shouldn't be there, doing things that—" Rex found something, evidence. "That's why I was documenting everything, why I had the search grid." "Evidence of what?" Mr. Chen set down his coffee, his old instincts sharpening. "I can't say exactly. It's classified, but Rex knows where it is." He marked the locations. David's hand reached out, though he couldn't quite reach his partner from his bed. "If he dies, that information dies with him." "Then he won't die," Ethan said, with the absolute certainty only children possess. "We just have to remind him why he needs to stay." The boy stood up, which put him at eye level with Rex on the examination table. He leaned close to the dog's ear and began to whisper. Not the song this time, but words, a story. Once upon a time, there was the bravest dog in the whole world. He had a best friend named David, and they went on adventures together. They saved people. They found lost things. They were heroes. Rex's ear twitched, angling toward Ethan's voice. But one day, they got separated. The dog was scared and hurt, but he didn't give up. He knew his friend needed help. So, he walked and walked, even when his paws hurt, even when he was so tired he could barely stand. David's eyes were wet now, watching this 5-year-old pour his heart out to his dying partner. And then the dog found a little boy who was sad because his daddy was gone. The boy was lonely, but when he heard the dog crying, he wasn't lonely anymore. He had someone to save, someone who needed him. Rex's breathing seemed to steady slightly. His eyes, which had been starting to glaze, focused on Ethan's face. The dog and the boy and the soldier, they're supposed to be friends. They're supposed to help each other, because that's what my daddy said. Sometimes God puts people together when they need each other most. And Rex, we need you. David needs you. I need you. The room was absolutely still. Even the machines seemed to quiet their beeping. Then, impossibly, Rex lifted his head. Just an inch, just for a moment, but enough to lick Ethan's tear-stained cheek. "That's it," Maria breathed, checking the monitors. "His heart rate is stabilizing." "How is that possible?" "Because he's not done yet," Ethan said simply. "Are you, Rex?" The German shepherd's tail wagged once, twice, then settled. His breathing deepened, not the labored gasps from before, but real steady breaths. He was fighting. He was staying. Grace pulled Ethan into a fierce hug. "Baby, what you just did?" "I told him the truth, Mommy. Sometimes that's all anybody needs to hear." David cleared his throat roughly. "Ethan, can you come here for a second?" The boy walked over to David's bed, having to stand on tiptoes to see him properly. "You saved him twice now," David said. "Once from the tree, once from giving up. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me. Friends help friends. Is that what we are? Friends?" Ethan considered this seriously. "Rex thinks so, and dogs are never wrong about important stuff." That drew a surprised laugh from David, the first real joy anyone had heard from him. "You know what? You're absolutely right." Mr. Chen's phone buzzed. He stepped away to answer it, his face growing concerned as he listened. When he hung up, he motioned for Grace and Maria to join him in the corner. "That was my contact at the police department," he said quietly. "They've had teams searching the area where David and Rex were found. They discovered something. Something that validates David's story about suspicious activity." "What kind of something?" Grace asked. "The kind that has federal agencies driving up from the city as we speak. They want to talk to David, and to Rex, if you can believe it." Maria glanced back at where Ethan was now, showing David pictures on his mother's phone, apparently of every dog he'd ever met at the park. "This is bigger than just a rescue story, isn't it?" "Much bigger, mister," Chen confirmed. "But right now, that little boy doesn't need to know that. Let him just be a kid who saved a dog." But Ethan, with that uncanny perception children sometimes have, was already picking up on the shift in the room's energy. He looked up from the phone, eyes moving between the adults. "Something's wrong," he said. It wasn't a question. David tried to deflect. "Nothing's wrong, buddy. The adults are just talking about the bad things in the forest. The things Rex found." Everyone froze. How could he possibly know? "Rex is still worried," Ethan explained, as if it were obvious. "Look at his ears. They keep moving like he's listening for something. He only does that when there's danger." Sure enough, despite his weakened state, Rex's ears were rotating slightly, tracking sounds beyond the room. His body, which had relaxed during Ethan's story, was tensing again. A knock at the door made everyone jump. A doctor entered, but something was off about him. His coat was too new, his manner too formal. Behind him, two more people in suits that screamed federal agent. "Sergeant Mills, I'm Agent Harrison with the FBI. We need to discuss what you and your K9 partner discovered in those woods." "He's in no condition," Maria started. "Ma'am, I understand, but this is a matter of national security. We have reason to believe Sergeant Mills and his dog uncovered evidence of a major criminal operation." Rex growled. It was weak, barely more than a rumble, but it was clear. He didn't like these people. "Easy, boy," David soothed, though his own expression was wary. "Agent Harrison, I'll cooperate fully, but my partner needs medical care, and this is hardly the place for a classified debriefing. We're aware. We've arranged for both you and the K9 to be transferred to a secure medical facility where—" "No." Ethan's voice cut through the official speak. "Rex stays here. He's sick." Agent Harrison looked at the boy for the first time, dismissive. "Son, this is official business. You need to let the adults handle this. Big mistake." Grace Parker stepped forward, and suddenly the room felt smaller. "That's my son you're talking to. The son who saved both their lives. You'll speak to him with respect, or you'll leave." "Ma'am, I didn't mean—" "Furthermore," Grace continued, her voice steady but fierce, "Sergeant Mills is a patient in this hospital, under the care of Dr. Martinez and his team. Rex is under the care of Dr. Santos. Unless you have a warrant or a medical degree, you don't get to make decisions about their care." Agent Harrison's jaw tightened. "Mrs. Parker, you don't understand what's at stake here." "Then explain it," Mr. Chen said, stepping up beside Grace. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're trying to separate an injured soldier from his K9 partner and the child who saved them both. That's not going to play well in the media, is it?" The agent's eyes narrowed. "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact. This story is already on local news. Hero Boy saves military dog and handler. You want to be the federal agent who traumatized that Hero Boy on camera? There was a standoff, tension thick enough to cut. Then Rex did something unexpected. Despite his weakness, he rolled onto his stomach and army crawled to the edge of the examination table, positioning himself between Ethan and the agents. The message was clear. You go through me first. Rex, no, you'll hurt yourself. Maria moved to stop him, but David spoke up. Let him. He's making a point. David's voice carried command authority that his medical condition couldn't diminish. Agent Harrison, Rex is a trained military working dog. He's identified you as a potential threat to that child. I suggest you step back before this becomes an incident. The agent looked between the growling German shepherd, the determined boy, the protective mother, and the soldier who, despite being bedridden, somehow still radiated danger. He made a tactical decision. Perhaps we can handle this differently, he said, tone modulating to something less aggressive. Sergeant Mills, would you be willing to provide the GPS coordinates of what Rex found? We can send teams to investigate while you recover. I don't have exact coordinates. Rex was marking locations as we went. The information is in his training. He could lead you back, but not in his current condition. Then we wait, Ethan said firmly. Rex gets better first, then he can show you. Agent Harrison looked like he wanted to argue, but his phone buzzed. He stepped away to answer, his face growing increasingly grim as he listened. When he returned, something had changed in his demeanor. There's been a development, he said carefully. Our teams found something at one of the sites. We need that dog's help more than we thought. He looked at Ethan. Son, Ethan, I apologize for earlier. You're right. Rex needs to heal first, but when he's ready, we're going to need him. And we might need you too. Me? Why? Because apparently Rex trusts you more than anyone except Sergeant Mills. And where we need to go, what we need to find, we're going to need that trust. David struggled to sit up straighter. What did your teams find? Harrison hesitated, clearly debating how much to share in front of civilians. Finally, he said, evidence of trafficking, not drugs, people, children. The word hung in the air like a physical blow. Grace's hand found Ethan's shoulder, pulling him closer. Rex's growl deepened, as if he understood. There's a network operating through those woods, Harrison continued, using old mining tunnels we thought were sealed. Rex found one of their waypoints, but there are more, and we have reason to believe they're moving their operation soon, maybe within days. Then you need Rex, David said. He found 3 sites. I documented what I could, but he's the only one who knows exactly where they all are. How long until he can work? Harrison asked Maria. Impossible to say. Days, maybe a week if we're lucky. His injuries are severe. We might not have a week. Then you better start looking the old-fashioned way, Grace said sharply, because you're not taking that dog anywhere until he's ready. Harrison's phone rang again. This time, his face went pale. There's been another development. A child went missing 2 hours ago. 3 towns over. Fits the pattern of the others. The room erupted. Everyone talking at once, plans being made, arguments starting. But Ethan noticed something no one else did. Rex was moving again, crawling toward David's bed with determination that shouldn't have been possible given his condition. Look, Ethan said, but no one heard him over the noise. Look, he shouted. Everyone stopped. Rex had reached David's bed and was pawing at something. David's jacket hanging on a chair. Specifically, a pocket. David reached over, wincing at the movement, and pulled out a small notebook. My field notes. I forgot. I documented everything I could remember about the sites. Harrison practically lunged for the notebook, but David held it back. Conditions. Rex stays here until he's recovered. Ethan and his family are protected. If these people find out a child was involved in discovering their operation, they could be in danger. And when Rex is ready, I'm part of the operation. Sergeant, you have a broken leg and possible internal injuries. And you have a missing child who needs finding. Rex and I are a team. You want one, you get both. Harrison looked like he wanted to argue, but time was working. Against him. Fine. But we're posting security here. For everyone's protection. As the agents left with David's notebook, the room felt suddenly smaller, more vulnerable. They'd stumbled into something huge, something dangerous. and a 5-year-old boy was now at the center of it. "Mommy, are we in trouble?" Ethan asked quietly. Grace knelt beside him. "No, baby, but we need to be careful for a while." "Because of the bad people Rex found?" "Yes." Ethan looked at Rex, who despite his heroic crawl was now panting heavily, clearly exhausted. "They hurt kids?" "We don't know for sure," Grace said carefully. "But the police think maybe?" The boy was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked over to Rex, placing his small hand on the dog's head. "Then we have to stop them. That's what heroes do. They protect people who can't protect themselves." David watched this 5-year-old process information that would terrify most adults. "Ethan, this isn't your fight. You've done enough." Rex doesn't think so. Ethan pointed to the German Shepherd, whose eyes were fixed on the boy with an intensity that seemed almost human. "He knows we're not done. Are we, boy?" Rex's tail thumped once against the table. "Agreement." Mr. Chen, who'd been silent during the exchange with the agents, finally spoke. "This changes everything. These aren't just criminals, they're predators. And they know the woods better than anyone. Except Rex," Ethan said. "He found them once. He can find them again. When he's better," Maria emphasized. "Right now, he needs rest, antibiotics, and time." But time was the one thing they didn't have. Somewhere out there, a child was missing. Somewhere in those woods, predators were operating. And the only one who knew exactly where to find them was a German Shepherd who could barely stand. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. FBI agents came and went, security was posted, plans were made. Through it all, Ethan refused to leave Rex's side. He read to the dog, sang to him, told him stories about all the adventures they'd have when he was better. "You know," David said during a quiet moment, "Rex has never bonded with anyone like this, not even me, and I raised him from a pup." "Maybe he was waiting," Ethan suggested, "for the right friend. Maybe. Or maybe he recognizes something in you, something special." "I'm not special. I'm just Ethan. Just Ethan who heard a dog crying when no one else did. Just Ethan who crawled through a fence he wasn't supposed to. Just Ethan who saved 2 lives today." The boy considered this. "My daddy used to say that being ordinary is just being extraordinary when nobody's watching." "Your daddy sounds like he was a wise man." "He was." He would have liked Rex. As if responding to his name, Rex lifted his head slightly, his nose working, then he did something that made everyone in the room freeze. He barked, not the weak pain sounds from before, but a real bark, alert. Warning. "What is it, boy?" David tensed, recognizing that particular vocalization. That's his alert bark. He senses something. Through the window, they could see the parking lot. Everything looked normal. Cars, a few people, the security agent Harrison had posted. But Rex continued to bark, growing more agitated. Mr. Chen moved to the window, his old instincts kicking in. "Black van, 2 o'clock, engine running, no one getting in or out." "Could be nothing," Maria said, but she was already moving Ethan away from the window. "Or it could be them," David said grimly. "If they have contacts in law enforcement, they know we found their operation. They know Rex is the key to finding all their sites." Grace pulled out her phone. "I'm calling Agent Harrison." But before she could dial, the van door opened. A figure in dark clothing stepped out, and even from a distance, something about their movement set off every alarm. They weren't walking toward the hospital entrance. They were moving along the perimeter, checking windows. "They're looking for this room," Mr. Chen said urgently. "We need to move. Now." "Rex can't be moved," Maria protested. "He's too weak." "He'll be dead if we don't," David countered. He tried to swing his legs off the bed, gasping at the pain. "Help me up." "You can't walk on that leg." "Then I'll hop." "Rex, up." The German Shepherd struggled to rise, making it to his feet through sheer will. Ethan grabbed his collar, steadying him. "There's a service elevator down the hall," Mr. Chen said. "We can take it to the basement, exit through the loading dock." "I'll get a wheelchair," Maria said, already moving. But time had run out. The door to their room opened, and a man in a maintenance uniform entered, except his eyes weren't those of a maintenance worker. They were cold, calculating, dangerous. "Well," he said, closing the door behind him, "looks like I found the hero dog and his little friend. Rex's growl was immediate and primal. Despite his injuries, he positioned himself between the man and Ethan, every muscle tensed for battle. "I wouldn't," the man said, pulling back his jacket to reveal a gun. "Hate to hurt anyone. I'm just here for the dog." Hand him over, and everyone walks away. "Over my dead body," David snarled. "That can be arranged." What happened next occurred so fast that later, no one could quite agree on the sequence. Rex lunged, despite his injuries. The man reached for his gun. Mr. Chen threw his coffee cup with surprising accuracy. Grace grabbed Ethan, shielding him, and David, broken leg and all, somehow launched himself from the bed. The gun went off. The sound was deafening in the small room. Someone screamed. Maybe everyone screamed. But when the chaos settled, the man was on the ground with Rex's jaws clamped on his gun arm. David was half collapsed on top of him, and Mr. Chen was holding the dropped weapon. "Everyone okay?" David gasped through gritted teeth. "We're fine," Grace said, though her voice shook. "Ethan, I'm okay, Mommy." The boy's voice was small but steady. "Is Rex hurt?" Maria was already checking the German shepherd, who maintained his grip on the intruder, despite fresh blood seeping through his bandages. "He tore his stitches, but the bullet missed everyone." Security and FBI agents flooded the room within seconds, alerted by the gunshot. The intruder was arrested, Rex finally releasing him only when David gave the command. But the damage was done. Rex collapsed as soon as the threat was neutralized, his body finally giving out from the extraordinary effort. "We need an OR now," Maria shouted, pressing on Rex's wounds to stem the bleeding. "He's crashing." They rushed Rex away on a gurney, Ethan running alongside until Grace caught him at the elevator doors. "Let me go with him," Ethan sobbed. "He needs me. The doctors need space to work, baby, but he'll be scared. He won't understand." David, being wheeled past in his own chair, reached out to grab Ethan's hand. "Hey, soldier." "Rex knows you're here. He knows you're waiting." The hospital room had become their whole world. 3 days had passed since the rescue, and Rex still wouldn't let Ethan leave his sight for more than a few minutes. The German shepherd's recovery was progressing, but slowly. Every time medical staff tried to move him to the veterinary clinic, he'd whine and struggle until Ethan returned. "He's traumatized," Maria explained to Grace during one of her visits. "The bond he's formed with Ethan is his anchor right now." Grace watched her son reading to the injured dog, their heads close together. "Ethan's been different since his father died, quieter, but with Rex, it's like he's found his voice again." David, recovering in the bed nearby, overheard. His leg was in a cast, ribs wrapped, but his eyes were clear. "Your son has a gift, Mrs. Parker. Rex doesn't trust easily. He's been trained not to." "Tell me about him," Grace said, settling into the chair between the two beds. "About Rex." David's hand moved to rest on Rex's back. "We've been partners for 4 years. Afghanistan, Iraq, stateside training missions. He's saved my life more times than I can count." His voice grew rough. "When I fell in that ravine, broke my leg, I thought we were both done for, but Rex wouldn't leave me. For 2 days he stayed, keeping me warm at night, trying to drag me out during the day." "Then you sent him for help," Ethan said, looking up from his book. "That must have been really hard. Hardest order I ever gave, telling your best friend to leave you, not knowing if you'll see them again." David's eyes met Ethan's. But then this brave kid heard him crying and wouldn't give up. "You saved us both, buddy." A knock at the door interrupted them. Mr. Chen entered, followed by a man in military dress uniform. The stranger was tall, stern-faced, with silver eagles on his shoulders that made David attempt to sit up straighter. "At ease, Sergeant," the colonel said. "I'm Colonel Harrison, Regional K-9 Unit Commander. I'm here about Rex." The room tensed. Ethan's hand tightened on Rex's fur. The dog's ears flattened, sensing the change in atmosphere. "Sir," David said carefully, "Rex is still recovering. I can see that." Harrison's eyes swept the room, taking in the unusual arrangement. "What I need to understand is how a highly trained military working dog ended up trapped in a tree, and why he's currently being treated in a civilian hospital with a child reading him stories." "It's my fault, sir," David started, but Ethan interrupted. "No, it's not. Rex is a hero. He saved David and then tried to get help and got stuck, and that's not anybody's fault. Sometimes bad things just happen." The 5-year-old logic was delivered with such conviction that even the colonel blinked. "And you are?" "Ethan Parker. I found Rex. He was crying and scared, and I helped him because that's what you do when someone needs help." Harrison studied the boy for a long moment. "I see." He turned to David. "The full report, Sergeant." David recounted everything: the training exercise, the fall, Rex's refusal to leave him, finally sending the dog for help. "Rex did exactly what he was trained to do, sir. He tried to complete the mission." "The mission was to get help," Harrison said. "He failed." "No." Ethan's voice was firm. "He didn't fail. He brought us to David. That's succeeding, just different than planned." The colonel's stern expression cracked slightly. "Young man, military operations don't work on different than planned." "Maybe they should," Grace said quietly, finding her courage. "My son found Rex because he heard something others missed. Rex found David because my son wouldn't give up. Sometimes the best plans are the ones we don't make." Harrison was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out a tablet, swiping through files. Rex's service record is exemplary: 4 tours, numerous commendations. But this injury, combined with the trauma... He looked at David. "He may not be fit for active duty anymore." David's face went pale. "Sir, Rex just needs time." "It's not just physical, Sergeant. The psychological evaluation shows significant attachment disruption. He's bonded with a civilian child. That compromises his training." "You want to retire him?" David's voice was hollow. "I want what's best for the asset," Harrison replied, though his tone had softened. "And for you, Sergeant. Your own injuries are significant. Your return to active duty is uncertain." The weight of those words settled over the room. David and Rex, a team for 4 years, facing separation not from enemy action, but from bureaucracy and injury. "What happens to Rex if he's retired?" Ethan asked. "Typically, retired military working dogs are adopted by their handlers," Harrison explained. "But if the handler can't take them, they go to approved homes. There's a waiting list." "David could live with us," Ethan said suddenly. "We have room. Grandpa Thomas has the whole basement apartment and he's lonely. David and Rex could stay there and heal together." "Ethan," Grace started, "we can't just..." "Why not?" The boy's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Daddy would help them. Daddy always said we should help soldiers because they help us. And Rex needs David, and David needs Rex, and they both need somewhere safe to get better." The room fell silent. Harrison looked between the injured soldier, the wounded dog, and the determined 5-year-old who had somehow become the center of their universe. "There are regulations," Harrison said finally. "Procedures. But..." He pulled out a card. "Sergeant Mills, when you're discharged, call me. We'll discuss options. All options." He looked at Ethan. "You remind me of my grandson. He also believes the world should make more sense than it does." After Harrison left, the room remained quiet. David stared at the ceiling, processing the possibility that his military career was over. Rex whined softly, sensing his handler's distress, and Ethan, with the simple wisdom of childhood, climbed carefully onto Rex's bed and started humming his father's song. "It's going to be okay," he said to both soldier and dog. "Sometimes endings are just beginnings wearing disguises." Grace moved closer to David's bed. "Ethan's offer about the apartment. He didn't ask me first, but... Mrs. Parker, you don't have to... My husband died 2 years ago. Construction accident. He was saving another worker when the scaffolding collapsed." Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wet. "He would have wanted me to help you. Both of you. I can't impose like that. It's not imposing if we're offering." She looked at Ethan and Rex, curled together on the hospital bed. "Besides, I think these two have already decided." That night, as visiting hours ended and Grace tried to convince Ethan to come home, Rex did something unexpected. He struggled to his feet, limped to the edge of his bed, and gently took Ethan's sleeve in his teeth, not pulling, just holding. "He doesn't want me to go," Ethan said. Maria, checking Rex's bandages, nodded. "His anxiety spikes every time you leave. It's unusual, but not unheard of in trauma cases." "Can I stay?" "Just tonight?" Ethan looked at his mother with pleading eyes. Grace looked at David, who shrugged helplessly. "Rex has made his choice. I learned long ago not to argue with him when he's decided something. The hospital, bending rules that seemed less important than healing, allowed it. They brought in a cot for Ethan, positioned between Rex and David. The boy fell asleep with one hand on Rex's paw, the other holding the book he'd been reading. David watched them in the dim light. "Your son saved more than our lives, Mrs. Parker. He saved our spirits." "He has his father's heart," Grace said softly. "Always running toward trouble." "That's not trouble," David corrected, nodding at the sleeping boy and dog. "That's hope." The next morning brought unexpected visitors. 3 men in civilian clothes but with unmistakable military bearing entered the room. David recognized them immediately, his unit, his brothers. "Mills, you look like hell," Rodriguez said, but his eyes were worried. "Feel worse," David admitted. "Guys, this is Ethan and his mother Grace. They're the reason I'm alive." The soldiers turned their attention to the boy, who was showing Rex a picture book about knights and dragons. The German shepherd appeared to be following along, his tail wagging slightly whenever Ethan turned a page. "This the kid who heard Rex?" Thompson asked. "The one the news is calling a hero?" Ethan looked up, suddenly shy. "I just helped. Rex is the hero." "Heroes recognize heroes," Martinez said solemnly, then snapped a salute to Ethan that made the boy's eyes widen. The soldiers had brought something, Rex's tactical vest, cleaned and repaired. "Thought he might want this," Rodriguez explained. "Even if he's retiring, he earned it." David took the vest with reverent hands. It was more than equipment. It was a symbol of everything Rex had been, everything they'd done together. "Thanks, guys." "There's more," Thompson said, pulling out an envelope. Unit took up a collection. "For medical bills, rehab, whatever you need." "I can't." "You can and you will," Martinez cut him off. "Rex is one of us, so are you. We don't leave anyone behind." The soldiers stayed for an hour, sharing stories that made David laugh despite his injuries. Stories that carefully edited out the darker parts for Ethan's sake. They treated Rex like the soldier he was, and they treated Ethan like he'd earned a place among them. Before leaving, Rodriguez knelt beside Ethan. "You did something special, little man. You heard a call for help and answered it. That's what heroes do." "My daddy was a hero," Ethan said. "He died saving someone." "Then heroism runs in your family," Rodriguez said. "Your dad would be proud." After they left, David was quiet for a long time. "They're good men," he finally said. "The best. They care about you," Grace observed. "Both of you. Military bonds run deep." David's hand found Rex's head. "Deeper than blood sometimes." That afternoon, Doctor Santos arrived with news. Rex's infection is responding well to treatment. His wounds are healing. Physically, he's going to make a full recovery. "And mentally?" David asked. Maria hesitated. "That's harder to say. The trauma of being trapped, the separation from you, it's left marks, but his bond with Ethan seems to be helping. It's unusual, but therapeutic." "What about David?" Ethan asked. "Is he getting better too?" "I'm not David's doctor," Maria said carefully. "But healing happens in many ways. Sometimes the best medicine isn't medicine at all." As if to prove her point, Rex struggled to his feet and limped to David's bed. With effort that clearly pained him, the German shepherd pulled himself up, resting his head on David's chest. The soldier's arms came around his partner, and for a moment, they just held each other. "We're going to be okay, boy," David whispered. "Different, but okay." That evening, Thomas Parker arrived. Ethan's grandfather moved slowly, his hip giving him trouble, but his eyes were sharp and kind. "So you're the soldier my grandson saved." "More like he saved me, sir," David said. Thomas studied him carefully. "Grace told me about the apartment idea. It's a good space, private entrance, full kitchen. Been empty since I can't manage the stairs anymore." He paused. "Could use someone looking after it." "Mr. Parker, I appreciate the offer, but you got anywhere else to go?" Thomas asked bluntly. "Family waiting for you?" David's silence was answer enough. "Thought not? Son, I've been where you are. Different war, same wounds. Not the ones you can see, the other ones. The ones that make you feel like you don't fit anywhere anymore. How did you get through it? Time, help, finding new purpose." Thomas looked at Ethan, who was carefully brushing Rex's fur around his bandages. "My grandson lost his father. You lost your career. Maybe you can help each other find what comes next." "I don't know anything about being around kids. And Ethan doesn't know anything about being around soldiers. You'll figure it out together. That night, unable to sleep, David found himself talking to Rex in the darkness. What do you think, boy? Trading military base for suburban basement? Rex's tail thumped once against the bed. Yeah, I know. The kid's special. But are we ready for civilian life? For normal? Rex lifted his head, looked directly at Ethan sleeping on his cot, then back at David. The message was clear. This was their new normal. The next morning brought another surprise. A woman arrived with a camera crew, local news wanting to do a follow-up story. Grace initially refused, protective of Ethan, but the reporter persisted. This isn't just human interest, she explained. This is about the bond between military working dogs and their handlers. About what happens when they come home injured. Your son's story could help other veterans. David made the decision. We'll do it, but focus on Rex and Ethan, not me. The interview was simple. Ethan told his story matter-of-factly, showing the camera how Rex responded to him, how they had developed their own communication. David explained Rex's service, his training, their bond. Grace talked about opening their home to healing. But the moment that would go viral, that would be shared thousands of times, came unscripted. The reporter asked Ethan why he'd risked going into the forest alone. Because, Ethan said, looking confused by the question. Rex was crying. When someone's crying, you help them. That's what makes us human. But Rex isn't human, the reporter pointed out. Ethan looked at Rex, then at David, then back at the reporter. Love doesn't care about that. The silence that followed was profound. Even the camera operator had to wipe his eyes. The story aired that evening. Within hours, donations started pouring into the hospital for David's care and Rex's treatment. Offers of help came from across the country. But more importantly, it started conversations about veteran care, about military working dogs, about the bonds that combat creates and what happens when those bonds are tested by injury and trauma. Colonel Harrison called the next day. Sergeant Mills, I've been following your story. The publicity has reached high levels. There's discussion about creating a new program, transition support for handlers and their K9 partners. Sir, you and Rex would be the pilot case. Retired together, supported together, medical care for both, transition assistance, and he paused. Placement in a supportive environment. The Parker family has been thoroughly vetted. They're approved if you're willing. David looked at Ethan, who was teaching Rex a gentle version of fetch using a soft toy. We're willing, sir. There's one condition. You'll need to participate in documentation of the process. Help us understand what works, what doesn't. Help us do better for the teams that come after you. Understood, sir. After Harrison hung up, David shared the news. Grace cried. Thomas nodded approvingly. And Ethan simply hugged Rex, whispering, You get to stay. We get to be family. But the universe wasn't done testing them. That night, Rex's condition suddenly worsened. His breathing became labored. His temperature spiked. Maria was called in emergency. Infection spread, she said tersely, working to stabilize him. We need to operate now. The next hours were the longest of Ethan's young life. He refused to leave the hospital, sitting in the waiting room with his mother and grandfather, while David was wheeled to Rex's surgery in his wheelchair, insisting on being present. What if he doesn't make it? Ethan asked his mother, his small body shaking with suppressed sobs. Then we'll have given him love in his last days, Grace said, holding him close. Sometimes that's all we can do. But it's not fair. He just found us. We just found him. Thomas pulled his grandson onto his lap, ignoring his hip's protest. Life isn't fair, buddy. Your daddy's death taught us that. But unfair doesn't mean without purpose. You gave Rex something to fight for. Now, we have to trust him to fight. In surgery, Maria worked with desperate precision while David held Rex's paw, talking constantly. Come on, partner. Don't you quit on me now. That kid needs you. Hell, I need you. We've got a new mission, remember? A new life to figure out. Rex's heart stopped twice. Twice Maria brought him back. The second time, David heard himself making promises to a God he'd stopped believing in somewhere in the desert. Please, not for me, for Ethan. Don't let that kid lose someone else he loves. Whether it was prayer, medicine, or pure stubborn will, Rex's heart steadied. His breathing improved. The infection was contained, removed. As dawn broke through the surgery windows, Maria finally stepped back. "He's going to make it," she said, exhaustion clear in her voice. "I don't know how, but he's going to make it." David broke down then, sobbing into Rex's fur while the dog slowly came back to consciousness. The tough soldier who'd survived combat zones couldn't stop crying over a dog who'd chosen to live. When they wheeled Rex back to recovery, Ethan was waiting. The boy's face was pale, eyes red from crying, but he was there. "I knew you'd come back," he told Rex. "Heroes always come back." Rex's tail managed the weakest of wags, but it was enough. The recovery was slow but steady. Each day brought small victories. Rex standing, Rex walking a few steps, Rex eating solid food, David's leg healing enough for physical therapy. The two of them relearning how to function, how to trust their bodies again. And through it all, Ethan was there, reading stories, humming songs, simply being present. The hospital staff stopped trying to enforce visiting hours. Some bonds they recognized were part of the healing. 2 weeks after the surgery, Rex took his first walk outside. It was just to the hospital courtyard, David on crutches beside him, Ethan holding a loose leash. But to them, it felt like climbing Everest. "We did it, boy," David said, sunlight on his face for the first time in weeks. "We survived." Rex looked up at him, then at Ethan, then did something he hadn't done since before the accident. He barked, not in pain or fear, but in joy, pure, simple joy. Ethan laughed, the sound bright as the morning. "He's happy! Rex is happy!" "Yeah," David said, ruffling the boy's hair with his free hand. "We all are." The day they left the hospital was supposed to be simple. David on crutches, Rex walking slowly but steadily. Ethan holding the special leash Maria had provided, but word had gotten out. The parking lot was full of people, veterans with their dogs, families who'd followed the story. News crews wanting one more shot of the unlikely trio. "I didn't expect this," Grace said, overwhelmed by the crowd. "Rex is famous," Ethan said proudly, "and David too." But David's face had gone pale. Crowds, noise, attention. It was too much too soon. Rex sensed it immediately, pressing against his handler's leg, providing steady pressure that said, "I'm here, we're safe." "Just to the car," Thomas said firmly, positioning himself as a barrier. "Folks, give them space. They're still healing." The crowd parted respectfully, though phones still captured every moment. One young girl broke free from her mother, running up to Ethan with a stuffed German Shepherd toy. "For Rex," she said shyly. "So, he has a friend." Ethan accepted it solemnly. "He'll love it." "Thank you." The ride home was quiet. David sat in the back with Rex's head on his lap, both of them looking out the window at a world that suddenly seemed too big, too normal. How did you go from combat zones and hospitals to suburban streets and mailboxes? "That's our house," Ethan pointed as they turned onto Maple Street, "the one with the blue door. Daddy painted it that color because Mommy loves blue." The house was modest but welcoming. The basement apartment Thomas had mentioned had its own entrance around the side, a small patio area that would be perfect for Rex. Someone, probably neighbors, had left welcome home signs and balloons. "You didn't have to do all this," David said, overwhelmed. "We didn't," Grace admitted. "The neighborhood did. You're not just news to them, you're neighbors now." Getting David and Rex settled took time. The apartment was furnished simply, but comfortably. Thomas had made sure everything was accessible for David's crutches. There was a special bed for Rex, though everyone knew he'd end up sleeping wherever David did. "This is too much," David kept saying, looking around at the space that was 3 times bigger than his military quarters. "This is home," Thomas corrected. "Get used to it." That first night, Ethan asked to stay in the apartment with them. "Just until they're not scared," he explained to his mother. "Are they scared?" Grace asked. "Not scared. Just new. Everything's new." She understood. Her 5-year-old understood something about displacement, about finding yourself in a life you didn't plan for. One night, she agreed. Ethan spread his sleeping bag between David's bed and Rex's, though Rex had already claimed the foot of David's bed. The German Shepherd's eyes tracked every shadow, every sound from outside. Hypervigilance, Maria had called it, a trauma response that might never fully go away. "It's okay, Rex," Ethan whispered in the darkness. "The sounds are just normal sounds. Cars and wind and maybe Mrs. Johnson's cat." "How do you know?" David asked quietly. After Daddy died, all the sounds were scary. Mommy explained each one until they weren't scary anymore. David was quiet for a long moment. Your mom's pretty smart. The smartest. And brave too. She cries sometimes, but only when she thinks I'm asleep. Everyone cries sometimes. Even soldiers? Especially soldiers. The next morning brought the first challenge. Rex needed to relieve himself, but wouldn't leave David's side. David needed to use his crutches, but couldn't manage them in Rex's leash. It was a simple problem that suddenly seemed insurmountable. Ethan solved it with 5-year-old simplicity. I'll take Rex out. You watch from the door. He might be too strong for you. But Rex was already at Ethan's side, waiting patiently as the boy clipped on his leash. They walked slowly to the small yard, Rex matching Ethan's pace perfectly. David watched from the doorway, marveling at the trust between them. He's never done that before, he called to Grace, who was watching from the kitchen window. Rex doesn't usually accept handling from anyone but me. Ethan has a way with broken things, she called back, then caught herself. I didn't mean we are broken, David said simply. No shame in admitting it. The days developed a rhythm. Morning walks with Ethan before school. Physical therapy for David while Rex watched anxiously. Afternoon reading sessions where Ethan would read to both of them, Rex's head on the boy's lap. David pretending he wasn't listening to picture books about brave knights and loyal dragons. But it wasn't all smooth. Rex had nightmares, whimpering and thrashing, until David woke him with gentle words. David had them too, though he tried to muffle his cries in his pillow. One particularly bad night, Ethan appeared at their door in his dinosaur pajamas, dragging his pillow. Bad dreams are smaller when you're not alone, he said, settling on the floor beside Rex. Your mom will worry. She knows. She said it's okay. 3 nights a week became Ethan's sleepover nights in the apartment. Grace initially protested, but Thomas pointed out what everyone could see. All 3 of them slept better together. The first real test came 2 weeks later. David needed groceries, but couldn't manage the store with his crutches. Rex couldn't handle the crowds yet. Ethan volunteered to go with them. It'll be practice, he said earnestly, for when you're all better. The grocery store was sensory overload. Bright lights, sudden noises, people everywhere. David made it 2 aisles before his hands started shaking. Rex immediately went into working mode, pressing against David's leg, creating a barrier between him and others. It's okay, Ethan said, taking David's hand. We can leave. No. David gritted his teeth. I need to do this. Then we do it together. They made it through, barely. Ethan chatted constantly, distracting David from the crowds. Rex worked like he was back on duty, clearing space, watching for threats that weren't there. An elderly woman recognized them from the news and started to approach, but Ethan politely intercepted. He's still healing, he explained, but thank you for caring. In the parking lot, David had to sit on a bench, head between his knees, fighting off a panic attack. Rex pressed close while Ethan rubbed David's back the way his mother did when he was sick. You did it, the boy kept saying. You were so brave. I couldn't even buy milk without falling apart, David said bitterly. But you didn't leave. That's what matters. That night, David called Colonel Harrison. I don't think I can do this, sir. The civilian world, I'm not adjusting well. It's been 3 weeks, Sergeant. Did you expect to be running marathons? I expected to be functional. You are functional. You're just functioning differently. Give it time. That's an order. Time. Everyone said, give it time. But time moved differently now. Days felt like weeks. Hours could disappear in a blink. David found himself losing track until Ethan started bringing him a calendar, marking off each day with stickers. So, you can see how far you've come, the boy explained. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Thomas had a bad fall, his hip finally giving out completely. Grace was at work, Ethan at school. It was just David and Rex when they heard the crash from the main house. David didn't think. He grabbed a cane instead of his crutches and moved faster than he had since his injury. Rex was already at the door, barking urgently. They found Thomas on the kitchen floor, conscious but in pain. Don't move, David said, his military training taking over. Rex, guard. Rex positioned himself beside Thomas while David called 911, then Grace. His hands were steady now, his voice calm. This was crisis, and crisis he understood. When the paramedics arrived, they found David had already immobilized Thomas's hip, made him comfortable, documented his medications for the EMTs. Professional, competent, in control. "You a medic?" one asked. "Soldier." "You learn things." At the hospital, a different one from where David and Rex had stayed, Grace found David in the waiting room, Rex at his feet despite the no pets policy that everyone was ignoring. "You saved him," she said, tears streaming. "The doctor said the way you stabilized his hip prevented worse damage. Just did what needed doing." "No." She sat beside him, took his hand. "You did more. You pushed through your own pain to help someone else. That's heroism. That's just being human." Same thing, sometimes. Thomas needed surgery, would need rehabilitation. The roles reversed. Now David was the one visiting, helping, encouraging. He understood the frustration, the pain, the fear of being diminished. He could speak Thomas's language in a way others couldn't. "You'll walk again," he told the older man. "Different, maybe slower, but you'll walk." "How do you know?" "Because you've got the same stubborn look Rex gets when he's decided something. And Rex always wins." During Thomas's recovery, the household dynamics shifted. David took on more responsibilities, managing things Grace couldn't, while working and visiting her father. He helped Ethan with homework, cooked simple meals, kept the house running. Rex appointed himself everyone's guardian, limping between rooms to check on each person. "You're getting stronger," Maria observed during a checkup. "Both of you." It was true. David's leg was healing well. Rex's wounds had closed, leaving scars but no lasting physical damage. The psychological wounds were harder to measure, but there was progress. Fewer nightmares, longer periods of calm, moments of something approaching peace. One evening, while Grace was at the hospital with Thomas, Ethan asked David a hard question. "Do you miss it, being a soldier?" David considered lying, giving an easy answer. But Ethan deserved truth. "Every day. It was who I was for so long. I don't know who I am without it." "You're David," Ethan said simply. "You're Rex's person. You're our friend. You're the one who saved Grandpa. Isn't that enough?" "I don't know. Maybe you don't have to know yet. Maybe you just have to be." The wisdom of children, David thought. So simple it might actually be profound. Colonel Harrison visited the next week, bringing news. "The pilot program is being expanded. Based on your progress, we're creating a nationwide initiative. Wounded warriors and their K-9 partners placed with volunteer families for transition support." "Based on our progress?" David laughed bitterly. "I can barely handle a grocery store. But you handled a medical emergency. You're caring for a family while their grandfather recovers. You're showing us that healing isn't just about the individual. It's about community. That's all Grace and Ethan. You're just too close to see it. Sergeant, what you and Rex are doing here, it's changing how we think about veteran reintegration. You're not just healing, you're helping others heal." After Harrison left, David found Ethan in the backyard, throwing a ball for Rex. The German Shepherd was moving better now, actually running a few steps before carefully retrieving the ball. "Colonel Harrison says we're helping other soldiers," David told him. "Good," Ethan said. "Everyone should have someone like Rex. And someone like you." "And someone like you," David added. "None of this works without you, buddy." "We're a team," Ethan said proudly. "Like in the stories, the knight, the dragon, and the brave squire." "Which one am I?" "You and Rex take turns being the dragon and the knight. I'm always the squire because I'm the smallest. Squires become knights, eventually. Then I'll be a knight who remembers being scared and small. Those are the best kind." Thomas came home after 2 weeks, wheelchair-bound temporarily, but determined to walk again. The house adapted around him, everyone finding new roles. David became his physical therapy partner, understanding the frustration and pain. Rex appointed himself Thomas's constant companion, lying beside the wheelchair like a furry guardian. "Never thought I'd have a soldier and a military dog as nurses," Thomas joked. "Never thought I'd have a 5-year-old as my commanding officer," David replied, watching Ethan orchestrate their daily routine with determined efficiency. The moment that changed everything came on an ordinary Thursday. Ethan's school had a Bring Your Hero Day. Most kids brought parents or grandparents. Ethan asked David and Rex. "I'm nobody's hero, buddy. You're mine," Ethan said simply, "and Rex's and Grandpa's and Mom's, even if she doesn't say it." David looked at Grace, who nodded. "You've become part of our family, David. The broken parts and the healing parts and everything in between." So David went to school, Rex beside him in his service vest that still fit despite everything. He talked to wide-eyed kindergartners about service, about partnership, about how sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help. "Mr. David," one little girl asked, "were you scared when you got hurt?" "Terrified," he admitted. "But Rex stayed with me. And then Ethan found us. Sometimes angels come in unexpected forms." "Like dogs and little boys?" she asked. "Exactly like that." The presentation was supposed to last 20 minutes. It went for an hour with kids asking endless questions, wanting to pet Rex, wanting to understand how someone so strong could also be scared sometimes. "You were amazing," Ethan's teacher told David afterward. "You've given these kids a different perspective on strength." That night, David found himself crying for the first time since the surgery. Not from pain or fear, but from something else. Grace found him on the patio, Rex's head in his lap. "I'm sorry," he started. "For what?" "For taking so much from your family. Time, space, energy." Grace sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "You've given us more than you've taken. You've shown Ethan that helping others isn't just about the moment of rescue. It's about the long journey after. You've given my father purpose in his recovery. And you've given me..." She paused. "What?" "Hope. That broken things can be beautiful. That families can form in unexpected ways. Something shifted between them in that moment. Not romantic, not yet, but a recognition of possibility, of futures that might include more than just parallel healing. "Rex loves you all," David said carefully. "I've never seen him attached to civilians like this." "Just Rex?" Grace asked softly. "No," David admitted, "not just Rex." Winter came early to Willowbrook that year. The first snow fell on a Saturday when Ethan was helping David and Rex practice walking on slippery surfaces. Rex's confidence had returned, though he still favored his injured leg. David had graduated from crutches to a cane he only sometimes needed. "Look!" Ethan pointed to the sky as fat flakes began falling. "Rex's first snow with us." They watched the German Shepherd discover snow as if for the first time, pouncing on flakes, rolling in the accumulation, barking at the sky. David laughed, really laughed, for the first time since his injury. "He's happy," Ethan said wonderingly. "We all are," David realized with surprise. "Despite everything, we're happy." Thomas called from the porch where he stood with his new walker. "Better get inside before you all freeze. Hot chocolate's ready." They gathered in the kitchen, Thomas in his chair, Grace home from her shift, David and Ethan covered in snow, Rex shaking himself off dramatically. It was chaos and warmth and something that felt impossibly like family. "I have news," David said suddenly. "Colonel Harrison called. They want me to work with the program, training other handlers and dogs in transition. Part-time at first, consulting. But it's something." "That's wonderful," Grace said. "You'll be perfect. It means staying here, in Willowbrook, if that's okay." "David," Thomas said firmly, "this is your home now. Both of you. For as long as you want it." Ethan threw his arms around Rex, then David. "Forever! You'll stay forever." "Forever's a long time, buddy." "Not long enough," Ethan said firmly. That night, after Ethan had fallen asleep between Rex and David during story time, Grace found David on the patio again, watching the snow fall. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For showing Ethan that strength isn't about not falling. It's about getting back up. For showing all of us that. He taught me that, actually. That first day when he wouldn't give up on Rex. He showed me what courage really looks like." "My husband would have liked you," Grace said quietly. "He believed in helping people, in second chances. I wish I could have met him. You're honoring his memory by being here. By helping us heal while you heal." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching snow cover the yard where Rex had learned to run again, where Ethan had taught them all about resilience disguised as innocence. "Mom?" Ethan appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. Rex had a bad dream. They went inside together, finding Rex whimpering in his sleep, legs moving as if running. David knelt beside him, hand gentle on the dog's head. "It's okay, boy. You're safe. We're all safe." Rex woke, eyes finding first David, then Ethan, then Grace. His tail wagged, the nightmare forgotten in the presence of his people. "See," Ethan said, "good dreams are stronger when we're together." 6 months later, on a spring morning that smelled like hope and new beginnings, they stood at the hollow oak where it all began. The tree had healed around its wounds. The opening Rex had been trapped in, now sealed with new growth. A small plaque had been installed by the town. Sometimes the greatest rescues happen when we save each other. David stood without his cane, Rex healthy and strong beside him. Thomas had graduated from walker to just a slight limp. Grace held a letter, David's official commendation for his work with the transition program, which had already helped dozens of veterans and their K-9 partners. But it was Ethan who spoke, reading from a school essay that had won a national contest about heroes. "My hero has 4 legs and brown eyes. His name is Rex, and he taught me that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you love someone more than you're scared." Rex loved David enough to stay with him when he was hurt. He loved him enough to try to get help, even though he got stuck. And when I found him, he loved us enough to trust us. My daddy used to say that love is the strongest force in the world. Rex proved that's true. He brought David to our family, and David brought Rex. Now we're not broken anymore. We're whole, just in a different shape than before. And that's okay, because the best families are the ones you choose, and we choose each other every day. As Ethan finished reading, Rex barked once, clear and strong. David's hand found Grace's. Thomas wiped his eyes without shame. And in that moment, by the tree where a desperate cry for help had started everything, they stood complete. A family forged from rescue, strengthened by struggle, and bound by the kind of love that transcends species, trauma, and loss. "You know what?" Ethan said, looking up at them all. "I think Daddy sent Rex to us. He knew we needed each other." "Maybe he did," Grace agreed, squeezing David's hand. "Definitely he did," David said firmly. "Some things are too perfect to be accidents." Rex wagged his tail in agreement, and somewhere in the rustling leaves of the healing oak, it sounded almost like approval, like a father's blessing on the family his son's courage had created. The local news ran one final story about them, titled, "The Boy Who Heard Crying a Year Later." It showed Rex running full speed across a field, Ethan laughing on David's shoulders, Grace and Thomas watching from a picnic blanket. The reporter asked Ethan what he'd learned from everything that had happened. "That listening matters," he said seriously. "Most people don't really listen. They hear, but they don't listen. Rex was crying, and I listened. And because I listened, everything changed. So now I always listen, because you never know when someone needs help, even if they can't ask for it with words." The story went viral again, shared by veteran groups, animal rescue organizations, families who understood that sometimes salvation comes in unexpected packages. Donations poured in for the transition program, which expanded nationally under David's guidance. But in the house on Maple Street, life had settled into a new normal. Mornings with Rex's walks, evenings with homework and stories, weekends with the whole family together, no longer conscious of the unusual path that had brought them here. One night, as summer turned toward fall, Ethan asked David, "Are you happy now?" David looked around the living room, at Thomas doing his crossword, at Grace reading in the lamplight, at Rex snoring softly by the fireplace, at this brave little boy who'd started everything with a simple act of compassion. "Yeah, buddy, I'm happy." "Good," Ethan said, settling against David's side with his book. "Heroes deserve happy endings." "This isn't an ending," David corrected gently. "It's a beginning." "Even better," Ethan agreed. "Beginnings last longer." And in that house where broken things had come to heal, where a soldier had found peace and a dog had found purpose and a family had found completion, the beginnings stretched on. Not perfect, but real. Not without scars, but beautiful because of them. A testament to the power of listening, of reaching out, of refusing to walk away from someone's cry for help. Because sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes. Sometimes a 5-year-old boy hearing a dog cry can reshape multiple lives. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe conspires to put exactly the right people in exactly the right place at exactly the right moment. Rex raised his head, looked at each of his humans in turn, then settled back to sleep. His mission, the one that had started in a ravine and nearly ended in a hollow tree, was complete. He had brought them all together. He had saved them by letting them save him. And that, as Ethan would say, was what heroes do. If this incredible story of loyalty, courage, and the unbreakable bond between a boy and a military dog touched your heart, please like and share it with others who need to hear it. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and if you've ever experienced the life-changing power of an unexpected rescue. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing true stories that will restore your faith in humanity and the incredible bonds between humans and animals. Remember, sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change everything, just like little Ethan proved when he heard a cry for help and refused to walk away.